We're going to begin with a traditional opening, and it's my pleasure to introduce Kat Krieger. He's a traditional teacher and mentor from the First Nations people. He is Cayuga, Turtle Clan from the Six Nations Haudenosaunee, or people of the Longhouse. Kat has been working as a traditional teacher and healer for more than 20 years in the Native and multicultural community in Canada, the US, England, and Wales. He was taught in the old way, working for many years with the guidance of an Anishinaabe elder and other First Nations elders, and was taught to do traditional ceremonies, teachings, circles, one-on-one work, and to help all people to walk in a good way through life. Presently, he holds the position of Elder in Residence at OISE University of Toronto, at the University of Toronto Mississauga, at the University of Toronto Scarborough. He's standing elder for the Council for Aboriginal Initiatives for the University of Toronto, and a member of the Elders' Councils for the Aboriginal Legal Services of Toronto. And I was told by Kat that that was just a few of the many titles that he holds. Yeah, they work him too hard. And as a beginning, I'd like to present Kat with tobacco. Thank you.
Bonjour, makwa gishgaden dishnaka, jikan dodam, kugan dunjaba, kuga nishnabe and dao. I want to open up with a few things right off, and that's to first acknowledge that the land that we're on here is the originally the indigenous people that took care of this land was the Mississaugas of the New Credit, and I honor their ancestors and those people, and acknowledge that I'm a guest here. I'm a guest on their land, and try to carry myself in that way and walk in a good way while I am a guest here. And also that it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be part of what's happening tonight. And often before I come here, I'll take some time out to think about what I'm going to say. And a lot of times that involves my little boy or what's happened to me over the last few days. But I was really pleased when I walked in here to see all the people. First, all these people coming to listen to hear about this. And it almost sounds like the thunder beings are here. You can hear them rumbling.
The subway thunder.
Yeah. And I acknowledge all those things, all those people, everybody that's come here. And out in the Mississauga campus, I renamed my little Aboriginal Center to Indigenous Center. And we wanted to do that because we wanted to acknowledge that we're all Indigenous from somewhere. We're all Indigenous people from the land. We're all Indigenous to this little world that we call Mother Earth. And a lot of our people, and I mean all people of the world, have experienced at some point or another some type of oppression or I'll call it negative pressure in a good way. And that we look forward to a time when that doesn't exist for our people. And the little ones coming up, I see Suzanne's brought her family with her, and there's other people here. But I was really inspired. I met somebody named Spring tonight. Can Spring wave? Has she learned to wave yet? Spring, your little girl, yeah? There, she's waving. Can you see her? I want you to turn around and take a look at this little one. She's only been here a few weeks. She's brand new, low mileage, still under warranty. But I brought my little boy with me one time when I was going to speak because I wanted people to realize why we're here. We talk about the next 7 generations. We talk about the ones walking in our footsteps. And we talk about the ones right behind us, those ones that are coming along, those ones that we are mentors to. We're obliged to walk in a good way to show them how to do it. We're obliged to make sure that they're safe. That was an onus put on us. Our people live that way. Our uncles, our aunties, our nephews, our nieces, our grandmothers, grandfathers, our own parents, all those, our peer group. Everybody was obliged to help us learn in a good way. We were brought here with gifts. Those little ones are brought here with gifts. We're pure when we arrive. We don't know anger. We don't know oppression. We don't know racism. We don't know a lot of things, but some of those things have to be taught. And I find when I look at the world sometimes that what I see, some of it's good, some of it's not so good. And I'm surprised what the little ones get taught. And I look forward to having the chance to be one of the people and one of the group here that helps teach them in a good way. This is a wonderful place. This place is devoted to teaching people how to teach. I think it's important that we get together sometime and discuss all the things that lead up to that. what we did right, what we did wrong, what should be fixed, what we can add to it, what we can put into it with our hearts. That's the most important thing to me, is what people put into it with their hearts. Because the day I walk my little boy into a place and go, here you go, take care of my little boy, teach him. I want to make sure whoever's doing that is doing it with their heart. It's very critical to me that they care as much as I do about how he's going to walk through life. Same with this little one up here, or these ones sitting right here. They're all very important to us. So we have some wonderful people tonight to talk, to listen to. We're obliged. It's a gift to listen to people who carry wisdom. It's a gift to be able to pick up that wisdom. We're obliged to carry it in a good way, in a special way, and to look at that wisdom as something that we should take care of with our heart. Often when we're here, I say we can't smudge here. Well, we can in some places, but I won't do it right now. We light a bowl, we light some sage, we take that smoke, we put it over our head, we breathe some in, run some over our ears, we wash our hands in it, take some over our heart. That's so that everything we look at, we're going to look at in a good way. Everything that we speak is going to come out in a good way. Everything that we think, everything that we touch, all those things are going to go through that filter that's our heart, and we're going to do those things in a good way. And also that we listen in a good way, because what we take in, what we hear, and what comes from people is so important. That's most often how we gain knowledge. Our culture was oral, and it went back a long ways. We still have that culture, we still have those teachings, we still have those thoughts. So I like to call them philosophies. I don't call them myths and legends. We still carry those philosophies of walking through life. And we did it that old style. And I think every indigenous culture started that way. It's a little bit difficult for me to sit in a classroom in a row and absorb things. I'm fine out in the bush. I'm fine learning things firsthand. That experiential learning concept. We just returned from a trip. We took 22 students up north of Peterborough and spent 4 or 5 days out in the bush with them. It was raining, freezing rain, ice. There was fires to keep warm, that was it. We put up a teepee. I know it sounds kind of image, but we put up a teepee. They learned just how hard it was to actually stand out there, make a fire, cook on a fire, and look for shelter just inside of a teepee. But all of them, unanimous, all those students said it was the most amazing thing they'd ever done, to actually get out there on the land, to be be immersed in the culture. And they appreciate it. I appreciate the chance to be able to stand here and speak and share those little things with you and share these few minutes. But mostly, since I said listen in a good way, I'm looking forward to listening to the people that have come here to speak. It's special for me to be able to spend this time. Because each time I'm quiet, I'm not quiet now, but each time I'm quiet, that's when I learn. I can't learn when I'm talking. So I know we're running just a few minutes behind tonight. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that. I'm going to let these people come up and share words with us, and Jeff's going to take over again. But I want to thank everybody for being here, because it's special that you're here. So, and for those ones that aren't here yet or that might be arriving, just hope they make it. Hope they walk in a soft way. We still have some seats, I think. So let's hope they fill up over the evening. So miigwech nyaha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kat Krieger, for the traditional opening to this year's symposium. My name's Jeff Kugler, and I work at the Center for Urban Schooling here at OISE. And on behalf of the Center for Urban Schooling, it's my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight to this 5th annual William Waters Symposium on Urban Education. Beyond the 3 R's, troubling reconciliation, restitution, and resurgence, a conversation for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal educators. And that's educators in the big sense, because everybody here is an educator. It's my great honor to acknowledge the generosity and foresight of William and Phyllis Waters, without whom this symposium would not be able to happen. The William Waters Symposium has become a much looked forward to annual event that has allowed us over the last 5 years to push our thinking, understandings, and knowledge on different issues connected to urban education and inequality. It's been my pleasure this year to have worked closely with Vanessa Russell, the William Waters teacher in residence, and the folks at the Toronto District School Board Aboriginal Education Centre to plan and organize this wonderful and timely symposium. It's hard to believe that we've been meeting and planning and working on this since the first meeting last May 7th. and it has been quite amazing, an amazing learning journey for us at the Center for Urban Schooling. You will hear more about tonight's event and this year's symposium shortly from other speakers. At this time, I'd like to highlight, I'm going to do a little sales pitch now, and I want everybody to listen really carefully to this sales pitch. I'd like to highlight a brand new publication from the Center for Urban Schooling that is truly hot off the press, came out yesterday. It's a Canadian social justice calendar called Our Stories, Past and Present. I feel like I'm on a TV show. And anyway, it's very beautiful calendar, and it's a great tool for teachers in all classrooms and community activists to have. It highlights historical and current events that illustrate the many struggles for social justice in Canada. It gives resources and web links for many of the highlighted events. All learning spaces need this calendar. You need this calendar hanging on the wall. And it is also an important fundraiser for the center. So please think of buying a copy tonight. They're on, so you can't miss them as you walk out. We're also happy to let you know that the designer for the calendar is the same as the design. If people look at your programs, the poster on the cover of the program is done by the same person who did the calendar for us. And the name of the company, it's an Aboriginal company called Mayangan Productions, and in particular, David Schilling. We truly appreciate their incredible skills and their support for both the poster and for the calendar. The calendar is available for sale outside the door, as are publications from Good Minds Books, including books written by tonight's keynote speakers. Both this symposium and our new social justice calendar resource represent some really good news from the Center for Urban Schooling. We're really happy to have you all here this evening for this important event, as we all, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, engage in this conversation so crucial to all of us in this country. How do we all move forward in the discussion in troubling reconciliation, restitution, and resurgence? I hope we all have a wonderful evening. And for those people who are coming to seminars tomorrow, I hope that we have an amazing day tomorrow. I would now like to introduce and welcome OISE Dean Julia O'Sullivan to bring greetings from the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm thrilled to be here this evening and welcome you all to the symposium on behalf of OISE and the University of Toronto. This year's Water Symposium is focused on Aboriginal education. And this, I believe, is the single most important and pressing priority in education in Canada today. We here at OISE, thank you. As Canada's largest and most influential faculty of education, I believe we here at OISE have a special responsibility to lead in Aboriginal education. We have led, we are leading, and we will lead stronger, further, and faster in Aboriginal education. And so it is deeply encouraging for me as Dean, and I believe for everyone else here at OISE, to see so many of you out here this evening, and so many who will be here tomorrow, interested in and supportive of our work and your own work in this area. Bill Waters is thrilled that this is the focus of his 5th symposium, as am I. And so I want to thank Jeff and his team at the Centre and all those at the Toronto District School Board who have helped put this together. I want to thank in advance our speakers tonight, who I know are going to do a fantastic job. And most of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. This is going to be a very special event. Thank you.
And now we have greetings from a few people before we get to the main purpose. So it's now, I'd like to welcome Professor Jean-Paul Rastoul to bring greetings from the Indigenous Education Network.
Miigwech.
You have a fan club.
Yes, guess so. Bonjour. Sego, Tansi, hello, Anin, Jean-Paul Restul Nindishnakaz, Wajash Nidodem, Akigandat Minasing Nidonji, Nishnabé and Dao, Wayminagoshi and Dao. I bring you greetings from the Indigenous Education Network, which serves as an Indigenous presence at OISE and has been here since 1989. A self-determining organization of students, faculty, and staff who are all committed to advancing Aboriginal education wherever it is that we work. So we are teachers, we are principals, we are learners, we are community activists. We have never been idle. So, and we have been doing this work a long time. We celebrated our 20th anniversary just a few short years ago, and looking forward to our 25th, I guess, in a year's time. But we are a network of people across Canada who perhaps met first here within the Institute, working in our own ways and in our own places to make things better for Aboriginal peoples and communities, whether that's through our research or through our teaching, our work with non-Indigenous people, or we are non-Indigenous people helping to do that work as allies. And so we're doing that work to better the communities, to support the people in their own struggles and resurgence work that they're doing, and to ensure and affirm and strengthen the identities of Indigenous people everywhere. And so that presence is here for any of you to become a part of, and we welcome you into our space. We welcome you into this institute. We welcome you to this great symposium and the seminars tomorrow. Want to say thank you, Miigwech, for your interest in these issues, for taking up this work in what you do as teachers, learners, educators, activists, and Miigwech, looking forward to this great panel we have tonight. I hope.
And just so you know, Jean-Paul, the one who has a fan club, is going to be co-facilitating one of the workshop sessions, one of the seminars tomorrow with Susan Dion. It's my pleasure now to welcome Kathy Paywis, Central Coordinating Principal of Aboriginal Education at the Toronto District School Board, our partner in this endeavor, to bring greetings on behalf of the TDSB.
Bojo, Kati Paywis Indigenous Shwanagan Dunjaba, Wawakesh and Dodem. I just wanted to, as I took a moment to do, to thank our elder again for bringing greetings and starting us off in a good way, and also for acknowledging the traditional territories on which we're gathered today, so that each of us in turn do not have to continue to do that. We have started off as appropriate. I also wanted to bring greetings on behalf of the Toronto District School Board, and in my capacity there, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity while I'm up here to also thank very much our partners in putting this together at the Centre for Urban Schooling and the University of Toronto. Tonight's event is the culmination of a 3-year partnership, and like you, we're very much looking forward to seeing the performance that we'll have this evening from our students and to hear our speakers who will inspire us. So I know that that would not have been possible without the vision and the collaboration from the team at OISE UT and the Centre for Urban Schooling. So miigwech. I also want to very quickly thank our staff from the TDSB and others in the community who have worked with us relentlessly over the past several months to put together tonight's event and to therefore allow us to enjoy what will come next. So with no more to be said on that regard, I turn it over again to Jeff. Miigwech.
Thank you, Kathy. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Professor Joe Flessa, Acting Director of the Center for Urban Schooling, who will bring greetings and a little talk from the center. No talk, just greetings.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Flessa, and for the past year, I've served as Acting Director for the Center for Urban Schooling while Professor Lance McCready is on leave. and it's a privilege to add my words of welcome to tonight's groundbreaking event. Here in this 12-story building dedicated to the study and practice of education, we often hear about great divides, like the divide between theory and practice, or the divide between schools and their communities, or the divide between the schools that we have and the schools that we want. At the Center for Urban Schooling, we're committed to bridging these divides because creating a fairer and more just world requires both researching existing inequality in educational opportunity in cities, as well as trying to do something about it. The Center's efforts to build the knowledge base on education in Canada's cities obligates us to connect the university more effectively to schools and communities because that connection will lead to better research and better practice. And when Canada's most influential faculty of education in Canada's largest and most diverse city takes seriously its responsibility to urban schooling, what you get are nights like tonight. The convening of an incredible intersection of scholarship, activism, and commitment to educational and social change. I thank you all for coming, and I look forward to learning together.
Thank you, Joe. And now, it's my pleasure to welcome Vanessa Russell, this year's William Waters Teacher in Residence, who really is sort of one of the lead people in organizing tonight's event, to speak to the partnership in organizing this event and to the symposium theme. We're going to have to compare fan clubs.
You guys are a sight for sore eyes. It's thrilling to see all of you here tonight. One major piece of my work, as Jeff says, in my role as teacher in residence, has been to organize this two-day symposium. And importantly, I've not been alone in this work. I'd like to share a bit of the context that brought about the precious collaboration necessary to organize this event. The Forum for Equity and Social Justice, affectionately known as FESJA, began several years ago as a way for the Center for Urban Schooling to build a public dialogue around urban education in Toronto and the Canadian context. Over the past several years, our center and the Aboriginal Education Centre at the Toronto District School Board have built a collaborative partnership to have FESJA focus on urban Aboriginal education. At the same time, beginning in 2008, and made possible through the generous support of Phyllis and William Waters, the Centre for Urban Schooling has organized an annual symposium on urban education. We decided that for this year, we would bring together and further develop our work and partnerships on urban Aboriginal education with the Aboriginal Education Centre at the TDSB and expand it into this two-day symposium. We brought together an advisory committee of Aboriginal scholars, community activists, elders, teachers, teacher educators, and students. And the committee's membership is included in your program. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who collaborated on this project. It has been amazing and energizing to work together and to form some newer and strengthen some older connections, alliances, and friendships. And like all collaborative projects, our work was a slow process that began last May. The initial theme of reconciliation and resurgence was interrogated by one of our keynotes, Taiaiake Alfred, who said, and I quote from the email, "The idea of reconciliation is abhorrent in the absence of restitution and active processes to decolonize the relationship between Canada and Indigenous peoples on both societal and political levels." So after a lot of discussion with the advisory committee about the multitude of ways in which the notion of restitution gets taken up, our current theme began to emerge, and the title for tonight's public lecture was born, Beyond the 3 R's, Troubling Restitution, Reconciliation, and Resurgence. So without further ado, we will move ahead with our program toward a vital and necessary component, and that is of student voice. So I'd like to introduce to the stage Vanessa Barnett, the Acting Program Coordinator for the Arts at the Toronto District School Board, who will introduce our student presentation for the evening, 8th Fire Journey. Thanks.
Good evening, students, educators, and friends. On behalf of the Toronto District School Board Arts Department, in collaboration with the Aboriginal Education Centre, it is my great pleasure to introduce excerpts from performance pieces and 2 short films created by TDSB secondary students under the direction of the artistic directors of the co-op program, Peter Treadwell, Sheena Robertson, Pam Snell, Debbie Nichols-Skerritt, and Blanca Marcelo Lopez. The Arts Co-op program began in the former Toronto Board of Education more than 20 years ago, and after amalgamation has flourished, morphing from a theatre program to include dance, storytelling, spoken word, media, and film. Truly an across experiences program. The work that you will see tonight is still very much in process as students craft their films, dance, and drama to become a touring company that will visit grades 7 and 8 classrooms across the TDSB in the month of May. These artistic creations will culminate in a showcase at YPT in June. The 4 works that you're going to be seeing invite student audiences to think and feel deeply about issues of identity and cross-cultural understanding. First Nations, Métis, and Inuit perspectives are woven into the fabric of these works through theatre, dance, and film. Each of the works that you will see tonight explores the theme of the 8th fire, the Ojibwe prophecy that foretells a time when society will reach a crossroad. In order for humankind to move forward in positive ways, diverse peoples from around the world must come together to create positive social and environmental change. Using music, dance, and dramatic text, the film 8 Fire Journey is a call to action, inviting young people to be the change that they wish to see in the world. Thank you.
A wise person once told me that each child carries the ancestral memories of the 7 generations before them.
For many Aboriginal youth, those memories are very complex. Do you know about smallpox?
The wisdom of the elders?
Residential school, killing the Indian and the child?
Aboriginal education today?
Adoption policies?
Each other?
Loss of identity?
Traditional languages?
Cultural genocide?
Social justice?
Betrayal of the treaties?
Activism?
Assimilation?
Healing journeys?
Traditional medicine?
Honoring the treaties?
allies and defenders of the land.
You cannot,
will not, break our spirit.
A group of young Aboriginals set out on a remarkable journey to completing 1,600 kilometers. When they arrived on Parliament Hill, the group, 6 youths and a guide from James Bay Cree community of Wapagoostui, Quebec, set out the journey in support of the Ottawa. Through cold, wind and snow, with temperatures as low as minus 50 degrees Celsius, they walked and snowshoed to Ottawa. Camping out and taking support as they went. They called the walk the journey of the Nishiyu, which means the journey of the people, Cree. This is our journey.
My name is David Kapawick Jr. I'm 18 years old. I live in Wapagoostui, a small community in northern Quebec, just by the Hudson Bay. Our community has suffered a lot. We've suffered through negligence and just terrible, terrible conditions. Very harsh. I've seen too many of my friends suffer through depression, have suicidal thoughts. But we are strong. There's a fire within me, within my community, within all of us, and that fire will light the way to change. And to move forward, we must walk. So who's with me?
We are!
I said, who's with me?
We are!
I said, who's with me? Let's go then. Come. Let's go. I don't know more, my friends. Where are we going? We're going to Ottawa. Let's go. Where's it going? I don't know more. Wake up, wake up. Wake up.
Hey, let's go. We're going to do this, right?
I don't know more. I don't know more, man. Let's go. Let's go.
Why should I go?
I don't know more.
I just can't handle this place anymore. It's a tarp for a roof and an old creaky floor. This isn't a house. It'll never be a home. Because a home is where you feel safe, not alone. Yeah! Let's go! Get out of here!
I'm doing this to be proud of my community.
I'm doing this for my family.
I'm doing this for my brother's illness.
I'm doing this so I can be heard.
I'm doing this for my siblings.
I'm doing this for the people I haven't met yet.
For my ill-sick mother, of course I will do this.
I'm doing this for my community.
nothing to hide.
A blizzard!
This, right here, this is what Canada should look like. All these people, native and non-native communities coming together, these traditions and connections, that's what this country is. I wish I knew more. I wish everybody knew more. Because we can help these people, we can connect with them. And it's unbelievable, their history. And we can let them learn in our country.
If we can fight together, we must strive together. And if we can play together, we must pray together. And if we can plan together, we must stand together.
Man, it was so much fun.
But I'm sad that it's ending.
Because we've had some good times.
Sad times.
And we all stuck together.
And it's great that all these people are paying attention. And these guys are helping themselves on this journey too.
It's helped me to better understand my life. But the journey's not over.
I'll keep on walking.
I will keep on walking.
I'll keep on walking.
We will all walk together.
You are the spark that's starting a fire.
I stand for peace.
That will spread across this land.
I stand for change.
It'll be a fire that doesn't burn, but a fire that cleanses.
I stand for equity.
A fire that ignites in our hearts and creates light.
The light of truth.
Freedom.
Respect.
No more living in darkness. It's time now to be light in the world. Everyone who is here today, you are a spark that will ignite 1,000 more people.
We are doing this with love.
You are a spark that will ignite 1,000 more people.
We are made to be heard!
You are a spark that will ignite 1,000 more people.
We are speaking up for the change we want to see.
We will be 1 million strong.
Wasn't that awesome? Thank you to each and every one of you for incredibly moving performances, media production, dance, and drama. That was absolutely fantastic. As we're all in this journey together, you've certainly ignited the spark in all of us. And we're with you on that journey. Again, one big up for the Across Experience students. Hi, good evening. Bonjour, Tanshi, Tansi. My name is Tanya Senk, and I'm the program coordinator with the TDSB for Aboriginal Education, and welcome here tonight. Now we're on to the next portion of the evening with regard to the keynote panels. And I would like to start by introducing them, but first we need to get the tables and the mics set up, and then we'll come back. So for this portion, each keynote will speak for approximately 15 to 20 minutes, and then there will be an opportunity for all of the keynotes to speak together on a panel in terms of themes that are emerging and arising. And first of all, I'd like to welcome Taiaiake Alfred, right here. Dr. Ellen Gabriel. And Dr. Susan Dion. So first I'll start with a bio. Taiaiake Alfred is Mohawk, born in Montreal in 1964 and raised in Kahnawake Mohawk territory. He is a full professor in Indigenous governance and in the Department of Political Science at the University of Victoria, specializing in studies of traditional governance, the restoration of land-based cultural practices, and decolonizing strategies. Dr. Alfred is a prominent Indigenous intellectual and advisor to many First Nation governments and organizations, having been awarded a Canada Research Chair, a National Aboriginal Achievement Award in the field of education, and the Native American Journalists Association Award for Best Column Writing. So welcome, Taiaiake. And I was also told that when there's about 2 minutes or so left, I'll wave this scarf. It's very bright, and hopefully it's not too distracting.
All right. It's a really pleasure of mine to be here today, and thank you all for coming and having this dialogue with us. And it's a real honor to be welcomed in the way that we were, and a special honor to be up here with these two women. And I'm a bit intimidated for a number of reasons, actually. I mean, last time I was here at Ryerson, they had Tom Porter and Norma General come and sit in the front. Now I got these two sitting here. And, giving a talk in front of colleagues who you admire is always intimidating, but I'm going to try to do my best. And then to follow what we just saw, I'm used to following like band counselors telling 50-year-old jokes and old professors reciting statistics and stuff like that. And then I come on. And but now, man, how do you follow up that? That was powerful stuff. So the kids in the back there, congratulations on the performance. It was really powerful. And we were kind of joking, what more is there to say? The message about reconciliation and what it is and so forth came through. So I want to thank you guys for that, for starting us off right. And it's actually very motivating to have been, to be a part of this and to start off that way, because it kind of leads into and builds on what I want to talk about, which is, actually I'll start with a question. How many of you, like me, are troubled by reconciliation? The rest of you will be by the time the night's over. And the reason I say that is because I think reconciliation in the way that it's been framed today and the kind of reconciliation era, and for those of you that are in academics, the paradigm that we're operating under is very troubling if you're concerned, like I am, and I think many of you are, with the survival of our native peoples as native, the survival of our cultures, the survival of our nations. because it's kind of a point that a lot of Canadians don't get yet, but we'll try to convey to you here tonight, that the way that reconciliation is thought of in Canada and the way that it's being put into practice in this country is actually a recolonizing concept, as opposed to a liberatory concept, as opposed to something that's freeing us from the injustice which we all want to address. It's actually paradoxically reinforcing the injustice that Indigenous peoples have endured and that this country is stained by. And so I've written a lot on this and I've spoken a lot on it. But the essence of my perspective that I bring to this conversation, that I'm looking forward to having with my two colleagues and all of you, is that Indigenous people in this concept of reconciliation are still thought of as the problem. You know, we are thought of as people who need to recover. We are thought of as people that need to resist. We are thought of as people that need to reconcile to the modern reality of what Canada is, as opposed to Canadians having to reconcile themselves that their country is built on crime, that their country is built on injustices which have been perpetrated and thus stain their own existence as Canadians and as individuals as we carry this burden forward collectively. And so if reconciliation is the reconciliation of Indigenous people to the structures of government, to the kind of laws, to the kind of attitudes and ideas that are mainstream in Canada, then I think it's recolonizing. If it's something that is oriented towards disrupting that pattern, disrupting those patterns of power, remaking Indigenous identities, remaking indeed Canadian identities, and restoring the essence of what is the existence of Indigenous peoples in this homeland, their connection to their land, then I think it's decolonizing. But we're all confused about that right now. I don't know if any of the young people that were up here could articulate it in this way, or would choose to, or would want to, even if they could. But that's really what people who are motivated today and involved in Idle No More and continuing to be involved in Indigenous nationhood movements and so forth are really fighting for. I heard it in the voice of one or two of them as they were talking here. What are they fighting for? They're fighting for the survival of their people and the recovery of dignity. They're not fighting to find a place necessarily in Canadian society without having that place critiqued and criticized to whether or not it actually serves justice from their perspective. It's not about fitting in, it's about changing Canada and transforming Canada. So when we talk about 3 R's, if we're talking about recovery, reconciliation, and resistance, I think that's passé myself. I mean, from coming from a nation and coming from a family and coming from a group of people that have been involved in all 3 of those things, I think that the evidence is quite clear in our own personal lives, collectively in the existences that we are living, and then also even in measurable social and scientific ways, that the approach that reconciliation is built on today is not leading to the outcomes that any of us have hoped for. You know, if reconciliation is supposed to achieve, even on its own terms, the reconciliation paradigm as it's put forward today by government and by major Aboriginal organizations, if it's supposed to achieve a standard of living that is equal to other Canadians, if it's supposed to eliminate racist attitudes towards our people, if it's supposed to eliminate violence against women, if it's supposed to restore dignity to the lives of Indigenous people, if it's supposed to restore the nationhood of our people so that there's a fair and equitable relationship between peoples in this country, all indicators are that it's failing, if we're honest about it. And so the question for anybody that's genuinely concerned with justice in this country on Indigenous issues has to be, what are we doing wrong? And I think the question that frames our whole endeavor is the problem. And it's that, it gets back to that thing about what is the problem? Is it the natives who have failed to keep up? Is it the problem where Indigenous people, because of the damage of colonization on their psyches and on their bodies and collectively to their communities, are not capable of relating to the society that's been put in place and is so successful? Is that the problem? I think that's the question that frames our efforts up to now. But if you really look at it, reframing the question and asking a different kind of question, like what is wrong with Canada and what needs to be changed about Canada to accommodate the continuing strong resurgence of Indigenous people to who they truly are, then you can get somewhere. You can really get somewhere that has a hope of achieving justice in this country. Otherwise, you continue that long, slow process, like I said a while ago, paradoxically, even unwittingly, of erasing Indigenous people's true existence from the land, erasing their existence from even their own mind. continuing that process of assimilation so that we don't even know who we are anymore. When it comes down to it, I see a lot of that, and I think a lot of you do, working in urban education, working with youth and so forth. You see a lot of people who are completely lost. And I think it's in large part due, well, it's the root cause, of course, is separation from our land base. The root cause is separation from our land base, the kind of colonial policies, the racist policies that we're all well aware of. I'm not going to focus on that in my brief remarks here. But the cause of people's confusion now in the minds of our young people, in terms of them wanting to resurge forward and channel their energies into activities that result in something positive for themselves and their communities, is that they're being kind of led in a direction that is not really fulfilling and doesn't really have any hope of transforming their lives. It's not transformative, it's accommodationist. And that's kind of a political point, but I think it's absolutely essential psychologically and spiritually in terms of us having a moral center and a grounding to what we're doing in the efforts towards justice in this country on Indigenous people. So you had 3 R's, the old 3 R's. I think the new 3 R's should be resurgence, should be regeneration, and should be restitution. You're all teachers or education people, so I'll stick with the 3 R's thing. So I know you guys like the 3 R's. So when I say this, and I know I'm running short on time, she's going to be waving her little thing pretty soon, but the 3 R's that I'm talking about, the 3 R's that I'm talking about, and I think really have a hope of creating a framework, a new paradigm for the achievement of justice in Canada, not only for Indigenous people, but as we saw in the performance here, hand in hand with the transformation of Canada so that it actually becomes what it proclaims to be, a democratic society guided by values of protection of the environment and all of those good things. If we have a chance of doing that, we have to reframe what the question is, and we have to reframe those 3 R's. When we talk about regeneration, what we're talking about is the regeneration of our culture, the restoration of our languages, the restoration of the ceremonies and the kind of connections that we have to each other through our traditional teachings. Most of us in this room have been affected by a disconnection on that basis for some part of their life. I come from a family that was raised in a Catholic tradition, in the community of Ganawagi, but raised in a Catholic tradition, grandparents speaking the language, me not speaking the language, and probably so many of you are in the same situation that I'm in. What has it been that's given me strength in my life to be able to confront the challenges in a real serious way that allow me to stand up here and be proud and strong as a Mohawk person and confident as a Mohawk person? Well, it hasn't been anything from that outside tradition. I can tell you, it's not from the Bible. It's not from what I learned in church. It's nothing like that. It's been my reattachment to understanding who I am as a Mohawk person through our language and through our culture and through our teachings. It's been a rerootedness. And the regeneration of that on a personal level and a collective level, I think, is absolutely key to what we're talking about. So we're not talking about reinventing cultures. We're not talking about fitting in. We're not talking about reinventing anything. We're talking about taking something which has been dormant, taking something which is there, but which we've kind of turned away from or been forced away from. We're forced away from that. Somebody said it in a conversation I had once, or maybe it was written and somewhere I read, about the traditions are not dead. The traditions are not lost. We're the lost. We're the ones that are lost because the traditions are there, the teachings are there, the land is there. If the traditions are, and the languages and the ceremonies are the voice of the earth, it's still there, it's still happening, but we've been convinced to turn away from that and look for answers elsewhere. And so the regeneration of ourselves and of our communities is core to this whole thing. We get to the really contentious one now, because most people could say, yeah, most people in Canada could say, I support my First Nations brothers and sisters regenerating their culture. Sure, speak your language. Dance, I love it. I love seeing you guys dancing. Eighth fire all the way, man. I love that. Then when you start talking about, well, in order for us to do that in any meaningful way, it has to be done on our land. In connection with our sacred places. In our homeland, our ceremonies mean something they do that you don't get when you do it in a university environment or anywhere else. It has to be done with respect to the land and what it has to teach us. And so that's where we start talking about that really contentious R word, restitution. restitution instead of reconciliation, or let me be a little more conciliatory, restitution before reconciliation. Okay, because reconciliation theory, I happen to be a political scientist, so I know there's about 31 steps. You know, when you get harm done, when you reach reconciliation as the goal, there's a whole bunch of things you have to do. Primarily, let's group them into three big ones, I think. One is stop the harm, stop doing the thing that you've been doing, apologize, you know. Well, we got one. And then you have to restore, you know, what you stole, or you have to give some sort of meaningful compensation or something like that. So when I talk about restitution, what I'm really talking about is that the central crime in the history of Canada, the central injustice that we're all living with today, is the theft of Mohawk lands and the theft of Cree lands and the theft of Dene lands and lands all around this country, which prevents us from actually living, having the possibility of living a true existence as Indigenous people. Restitution means, in practical terms today, not everybody going back, so to speak, where their ancestors came from or where they immigrated from or anything like that. Well, there's probably some Mohawks who believe that that's what should be done, but I'm not one of them. I'm a little more conciliatory there. What I believe in is that there's an essential connection that needs to be restored. And restitution allows that. Not negotiating a kind of a shared use or development of the land, not negotiating any kind of fitting into the paradigm of development and so forth, but we need land restored to us, restitution. Restore that land to us so that we can use it in a way that allows us to, on a physical, spiritual, cultural level, and economic level, connect with our homeland in a way that allows us to sustain. And then the third are resurgence. Well, resurgence is really building up from this strength, building up from the strength that we get as individuals who have regenerated our culture, who have reconnected to our land, and have strength again, and then collectively as families and as nations begin to act to demand from the Canadian society and demand from the Canadian government the kind of respect that's embodied in our two-row Wampum Treaty, in the Goswanta, and all the other treaties that the ancestors engaged in with Canada. Not in terms of us coming to try to beg for inclusion into something that was an injustice, but again, having the strength to negotiate from a position of strength to say, this is something that your country is founded on, this is something that you as a Canadian have inherited as an obligation, this is something you should value. Look at all of the flags that we have around here. These are flags of nations. Well, there's one of 6 nations and 5 nations, but when you look at it, this is a nation, Canada. There's the Mohawk Nation. There's the Inuit. There's the Métis. It's not a situation where these people can, in the long term, survive if they're all amalgamated into one single identity and one single way of being in the world. This is not the way Canada was founded. This is not the foundation of Canada. That's that other flag right there. You see that other flag there? That's the melting pot. You know, Canada was founded on treaties. Canada was founded on the relationship, the nation-to-nation relationship between Indigenous peoples and the people who came here afterwards. And it's really an honorable thing to be engaged in a struggle, whether you're Indigenous or whether you're non-Indigenous, in the restoration of that original teaching, which is a teaching shared by all of us, Native and non-Native. It's the original teaching, the original founding principle. And so to be in struggle for that in all of these different ways is really an honor, and it's an honor to be up here and be in struggle with you and trying to move us a little bit closer to that ideal. So, nyawa, daneto.
Thank you, Taiaiake, for the comments that you made. Now I'd like to introduce Ellen Gabriel. Ellen Gabriel, Ganya Gahaga Nation, Turtle Clan, was well known to the public when she was chosen by the people of the Longhouse and her community of Kanesatake to be their spokesperson during the 1990 Oka Kanesatake crisis, to protect the pines from the expansion of a 9-hole golf course in Oka Kanesatake. For the past 24 years, Ms. Gabriel has been a human rights advocate for the collective and individual rights of Indigenous peoples and has worked diligently to sensitize the public, academics, policing authorities, and politicians on the history, culture, and identity of Indigenous peoples. She has worked as an art teacher for the Mohawk Immersion School for grades 1 through to 6, and in 2004, she was elected president of the Quebec Native Women's Association, a position which she held for 6.5 years. Welcome.
Sego guego, kati tsagos na yujat tanu wagenya tu, kanya kahagane kaya do the tanu gana sada gena gere. Nyoko Jeffrey di taskungarawis nigi nigi kajokwad ada wat kanisa araki jokarasa. Wakatsununi tskai gets tanu ti to diosu. Nyoko no ho tasawayote. Jiwagatsununi tanu dio weza no ho tawagat kahto. Do akadaso wakatunzone ji sungoya ditu tinuwarados ji OISE wani sarate want yung gwana kadene guys na junzate jo OISE wani sarate rosoni ji sego want yung gwaya sego want yung gwatsari na nagakwa to no negonos sego want yung gwatsari na kasatstasara kunurong gwatsara tanu sa gwanyast tanoni wakatunzone ji tinuwarados na nisna to hunzate ne nagwegono to yunis Nene gwegano de yung kiawis. Agwegano tayo ta noho tayo ko yo tetano te yung kirihunyas. Tano di tinuwarado sa gwego de tawanara. So I want to thank Jeffrey Kugler for inviting me here, and to the youth as well, for the wonderful performance that they gave us. And as we were joking before, that's a hard act to follow, and I have to say that Taiaiake is also a very hard act to follow. It's like, what else can I say? And I wanted to acknowledge and greet the Creator for this new day that we have, and all the things that is put on this earth for us to have: food and water, love, respect, and strength, and to Mother Earth as well. Because without her, we cannot live. She does not need us, but we need her. And I think that's the thing for me as a person, a human being. That has been part of my motivation in doing the work that I've been doing for the last 24 years since the Oka crisis. Because what we're looking at today is a resurgence of tyranny also. A resurgence of the most evil kind. And that's why I look at the youth, what they did this evening, and I say that is what it should be about. But the reality is, for us as Indigenous peoples in the Americas, we have been fighting a war for over 500 years. And after the War of 1812, it was a low-intensity warfare. And so we continue to struggle to be who we are and be comfortable in our skin since the Indian residential school system. To be comfortable as Indigenous people, as Oahu persons, who were taught from our ancestors' teachings to love, respect, and honor the earth, to love, respect, and honor all of creation, not just human beings, that we are part of creation. We are not separate from it. And it's those teachings that I wish would be in your schools. And I congratulate this university and the people who have put this together, and Mr. Waters, for taking the time to understand and realize and acknowledge the importance of the education of Aboriginal peoples, children, youth, and to have that curriculum in your schools. Because Canada is founded on 3 legal fictions: the doctrine of discovery, papal bulls, and the doctrine of conquer. And we were not considered human beings. And the way we are treated today, we are still not considered human beings. Because as Taiaiake has said, we must fit into, again, another box. It's a new kind of colonization. And it's a colonization that is more insidious than before. Because we have our own people who are part of that process. And it's because of that Indian residential school that made us feel ashamed of who we are, made us ashamed of the color of our skin, made us ashamed of the languages that we spoke, made us ashamed of wearing our traditional outfits, made it illegal for us to dance and sing our songs that you see now, which we see in shopping malls. It made it illegal for us to practice our traditional governance, which was replaced by a band council system that was replacing the Indian agent. And so Canada's long history of colonization continues today, at this very second that we are breathing. And it is people like you who will make that difference. It is people like you who have demonstrated your presence here tonight, that you care more than what your Prime Minister has said. He issued a hollow apology, and I equate it to the alcoholic who beats his wife. And the next day he apologizes and says, "Honey, I'm not going to do that again. I'm so sorry." And that very same day, he goes out with his buddies and drinks and comes home and repeats that cycle of violence. And when we're talking about restitution, resurgence, I'd like to see the resurgence of Indigenous women in decision-making. I'd like to see the resurgence of Indigenous women in where we stand and where we stand in this society. And there's lots of good things about Canada. It's not all bad, because I can tell you that my Indigenous brothers and sisters who live in other countries, if they were to speak out the way I have in the last 24 years, and if this was a different country, I would not be standing before you. Although 24 years ago, on July 11th in 1990, my right to live was almost taken by the Sûreté Québec. And if it wasn't for our belief in the ceremonies, if it wasn't for those things of knowing how to resist, how to understand tyranny, how to understand people who hate, that we would not be here today. And it's because of the love that we are taught, even in spite of everything that's happened to us in the last 500 centuries, that we even find the time to love, that we even find the time to honor, and to still try and reach our hand out to Canadians to say, please, wake up. You are about idle no more. It's not Indigenous people. This is about Canadians being idle no more and being able to understand that Indigenous people are human beings with a rich culture, with rich languages, a language that you cannot find anywhere else, not like English or French, where you have countries that speak it. In Canada alone, more money is spent on English and French than it is on Indigenous languages. And so that apology, when I hear that apology, when I hear it mentioned at the United Nations because of diplomacy, because Canada needs to be patted on the back for something, that I think of those many children who in Indian residential school had needles put through their tongues for speaking their language, who had their hands held over a hot flame because they nurtured a younger sibling. Or in some cases, and we have some of these stories in my community, where they were held in the basement, shackled, their hands, and there for days without food or water. And I think of those ancestors, the ones who have passed on, and I think, what about justice for them? It's time Canada woke up to the reality that what you have is an authoritarian state. a prime minister who has Machiavellian characteristics. And that when we decide to be self-determining, and we're not asking for the permission to be self-determining. This will speak for the Mohawks. We're just saying we are. We are criminalized. Our languages are still being criminalized and marginalized. Our culture is still being marginalized. And there have been numerous reports within Canada, within the United States, at the international level, that talk about diversity as being rich. It enriches a state. And that Indigenous languages and cultures are part of the rights to self-determination for Indigenous peoples. That states have positive obligations in correcting the things and the harm that they have done, historically have done. And that assimilation is morally reprehensible. But assimilation continues today. And until you see that Indigenous control over Indigenous education, or the 1972 battle cry, Indian control over Indian education, needs to happen today. That until Canadians realize that, they are not going to be the great country that they can be. It is not going to be the freedom-loving and peace-loving and human rights-promoting country that it can be. Because Indigenous peoples still have to struggle and justify every single second of our waking lives, our own existence. And unless we assimilate, and unless we accept the marginalization of who we are as Indigenous people, unless we accept that, we will continue to fight. We will continue to be criminalized. We will continue to be called old-fashioned and archaic. And yet, if you held the mirror to the Parliament of Canada, how old is the parliamentary system? The Iroquois people have one of the first democracies. I know the Greeks get credited a lot, but so do the Iroquois people. And it was about peace, respect, love, strength, for yourself to begin with, for your family. And my family and I just realized I have a brother here. He's a Turtle Clan cat that opened. And my brother, because he's a Turtle Clan. Love and honor for all of creation. And when we do ahan to kariwatehkwa, the words that are said before all else, we acknowledge all of that creation that brings us life. We acknowledge all our relatives that we need to protect, from people like Stephen Harper, Enbridge, Imperial Oil, Alcan, the United States, and others who would see the environment destroyed because it's all about the bottom line. And that's what it's about. That's why there has been no reconciliation or restitution, because it is about economics. It's about the bottom line. How much does it cost? Well, in the long term, it's priceless. It's an investment into the future. It's an investment into a good quality of life that your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, and so on, will be able to enjoy. And that's why we need to stand together. And not you speaking for us as Indigenous people, but us standing side by side together. As that round dance says, we're holding hands and we're moving in a circled direction. We're not going just in a linear path where we don't see the mistakes that we've made. We go in that circle and we see that reflection in everybody's faces of what needs to be done and what needs to be changed. And I am really happy that educators like yourselves are finally getting off your butts. I get frustrated often because one of the biggest groups of people, the most resistance that we've had, at least I'll say we because I traveled with some members of my community, are from historians. You know, and they're pretty adamant about their truth. And we even have our own people. You know, they say that the Mohawk people originated in New York State, the Mohawk Valley. But I come from the oldest community in our nation. And why I say that is because Ganesadage is mentioned in the Hai, in the condolence rites of a chief, because we were the first community to accept Kayanarat Goa, the great law of peace. We have pottery shards that were found in Oka Park that date 2000 BC. And no, we were not the St. Lawrence Iroquois that disappeared and aliens came to take us in some kind of spaceship. Our people existed, yes, our people existed long before Europeans arrived. Our traditional governing structures existed long before Europeans arrived. And we need to teach that in your schools. We cannot wait for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to be finished. We need it today. We need it now. And one of the best tools we have is technology. We have to meet the youth at what tools that they use and love and understand. You know, when I was in university at Concordia, when we wrote papers, we were still typing them. And I would write them out and I'd pay somebody, I don't know how many cents a word to type out my papers. And so, you know, the technology is wonderful. I'm very technologically challenged, but it's a gift. But technology costs money. But you know what doesn't cost money? Is free will. Political will is needed. We need compassion, we need love, we need understanding for us to achieve those 3 R's that you're talking about. And we need that at your government level, because I've seen many conferences like this where people are willing and open-minded, but that you need to cross past that line where it costs money, where we get our land back, where we have access and control over our lands and territories, where we have access and control to our languages and culture in the education system. And not just for children and youth, but for adults as well. The system cannot be changed unless people are willing to change it, and unless people see the results at the end, which are beautiful, which can be beautiful, but we need to do it together. Because we're not many Mohawks, you know? I heard that after the first century of contact with Europeans, 3/4 of the indigenous population in the Americas were dead. When I saw that smallpox picture, smallpox affected my community. And I think of those people that have gone on, and I think they would be happy to hear that Canadians are idle no more, and that they are willing to see us as human beings, and to allow us that breathing space. We need that breathing space. From the Indian residential school system effects to the Indian Act, and we have some wonderful things. The framework of reconciliation could be the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It's got all those institutions, media, education, restitution of the artifacts that were stolen from our communities and that now exist in museums. And they won't give it back until we have museums. 1 minute. And it's a good thing you do that, because Mohawks can talk all night. Yeah, I'm just getting warmed up here. But I want to encourage you to put into your curriculums this fall the history of the residential school systems in all of Ontario. And I've spoken this to ministers of education a few times in Quebec, and they always tell me don't worry, we have the academics that they can write the curriculum for you. And this is another colonial mentality that needs to be changed. But as voters, get out there and pressure your MPs. If you got family in Quebec, tell them about it. You got family in Manitoba, Alberta, right across this country. You got to get your politicians to start making Indigenous people's issue a priority when it comes election time. Not just when it's not election time, when it's safe to say, yes, it's a shame what's happening to Indigenous women, that they're getting murdered and missing. Yes, it's a shame that the education system will take 28 years for reserve schools to catch up with the rest of Canadian society. Yes, it's a shame that the youth have the highest suicide rates. And it goes on and on and on. As voters, you have rights. As citizens of your country, you have rights. As human beings, you have rights, and you are not powerless. You have that right, and I hope that you take it. Yawakoa, Tanikawanaka.
Thank you, Ellen. Now, Susan D. Dion is an Indigenous scholar, Potawatomi, Lenape, who has been working in the field of education for over 25 years. Professor in the Faculty of Education at York University in Toronto, her research interests include decolonizing and indigenizing education, urban Aboriginal education, and violence prevention in Indigenous communities. Dr. Dion works in collaboration with the Toronto District School Board Aboriginal Education Centre on research and program development. She is widely consulted by diverse community groups, workplaces, and institutions on developing methods for building more equitable, respectful relationships between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. Welcome, Susan Dion.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya, for that introduction. Thank you to all of you for being here. Kat, thank you for your opening tonight. Chimigwech. I want to acknowledge my family members who are here this evening, my daughters Claire and Vanessa, my sister Anne, and my brother, co-author of the Braiding History Stories, Michael. Thank you for being here, for your love and support. So, as Tanya explained, my work is grounded in both my personal and professional experiences. 30 years ago, I started my professional life as an elementary school teacher. And like many of you here tonight, I am here because I am a teacher committed to transforming the representation of Aboriginal people in Canadian classrooms, with a profound faith in the power of education and a firm belief that as teachers, we have a responsibility to work in service of accomplishing equity and justice in the relationship between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. My talk this evening begins with an encounter I had while working on a research project. A few years ago, I was interviewing a 14-year-old Anishinaabe student at her high school in Thunder Bay. During our conversation, the student looked at me and asked, "Why? Why do people live on reserves? Town kids can wake up at 8:30 and get to school on time. I have to catch the school bus at 7 a.m. I just don't understand why. Why do we even have reserves?" I was struck by this student's question and thought again about how, in our preoccupation with students' performance on standardized tests and our lessons about teepees, igloos, and totem poles, we have failed to provide this student and others like her with the knowledge and understanding she requires to make sense of her day-to-day lived realities. Like some of you in this room, I'm familiar with that student's frustration. My sister, brothers, and I, we grew up in Southern Ontario. Our mother, Audrey Angela, was born at Moravian Town, a small First Nations community located south of London. Our mom, born in 1930, was in many ways a survivor of the state policy of forced assimilation. She couldn't teach us her mother's language, her ceremonies, or traditional teachings. Mom did teach us about love, about pride in a job well done, about loyalty, and about taking care of each other. When we went to school, our teachers taught us about the Indians of Canada. These lessons reproduce what I call the discourse of the romantic mythical other. Stories about Native people who lived a long time ago, hunters, fishers, and gatherers who traveled by canoe, carried tomahawks, and wore war paint. Lessons that positioned the real Indians as a people of the past. These stories about our ancestors, they are important. They need to be told, but they cannot be the only stories educators tell. All students have a right to know about treaties, the Indian Act, the development of the reserve system, the history of residential schools, and importantly, the ongoing implications of this history for all Canadians. Now, while I know that as teachers we've made progress, students I meet in my university classrooms, and many of them are here in the audience tonight, these students continue to tell me about the lack of access to Aboriginal content in their elementary and secondary school classrooms. Additionally, I've reviewed the most recent curriculum documents produced here in Ontario, and yes, the ministry is working at change. But as educators, we have to move past an approach that positions First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people as benevolent helpers, pitiful victims, strident survivors, militant others. Teaching about Aboriginal people's contributions to Canada is insufficient. We need to teach about land, resources, treaties, and the complexity of the relationship that allows the settler state to benefit from the wealth of Indigenous lands while far too many Aboriginal people live in poverty. We need lessons that reflect Indigenous humanity, Indigenous knowledge, our ways of knowing and being in relationship with one another and with all of creation. The more I learn, the more I understand that our mother did teach us what it means to be Potawatomi. It was the lessons I learned at school that made it unrecognizable. So you see, what is and is not taught in Canadian classrooms concerns me a great deal. Most specifically, my work is about understanding and identifying and understanding the depth of resistance to change. The ongoing challenge and complexity of addressing First Nations, Métis, and Inuit content became exceedingly clear to me last year when I completed a research project for the Métis Nation of Ontario. The purpose of the Métis education study was to assess what is being taught and what is being learned in faculties of education across Ontario. I reviewed websites, interviewed instructors, surveyed and interviewed recent graduates. Participants overwhelmingly reported that when it comes to Aboriginal subject material, very little is being taught and not much is being learned. What is most troubling and simultaneously most useful is in the details of what the recent grads describe. Many experience a degree of frustration deriving from the contradictory messages they receive. On the one hand, they're made to feel as if they should be integrating Aboriginal content across their curriculum, but they're not provided with instruction on what to teach and how to teach the content. For me, these results were not so surprising. My work brings me into regular contact with educators. And through these exchanges, I have come to recognize what I call the position of the perfect stranger. In my conversations with teachers, teacher educators, and teacher candidates, people tell me, "But Susan, I can't teach this content. I know nothing at all about Aboriginal people. I have no friends who are Aboriginal. I didn't grow up near a reserve. I didn't learn anything in elementary school." People are insistent, and their insistence led me to question, what's so desirable about this position? What does it offer? I had many conversations up on the 10th floor with one of my most important teachers, Dr. Roger Simon. And it was in dialogue with Roger that I came to understand the allure, the enticing nature of the perfect stranger position. It's a position that gets teachers off the hook. To be a perfect stranger to Aboriginal people and Aboriginal issues is to absolve oneself of responsibility. My position is, if you live on this land, whether your family came last week or your ancestors came 300 years ago, this land was made available for you and your family to live on because Aboriginal people were removed from the land. Thus, whether you know it or not, whether you appreciate it or not, you are in a relationship with us. Each one of us, individually and collectively, we have inherited a history. And if we take seriously our commitments to equity and justice, we are required to act. Engaging teachers and understanding their resistance to teaching Aboriginal subject material is challenging work. It requires a willingness to confront fear, ignorance, and discomfort. The fear is powerful and complex. Teachers have a genuine fear of saying and or doing the wrong thing, of being accused of appropriation, of getting it wrong. Similar with most Canadians, teachers have learned their anti-racism lessons well. They know that discrimination on the basis of difference is wrong and emphatically defend their position as anti-racists, oftentimes consequently shutting down the possibility of engaging with the history of colonialism. For many, interrogating Canadian colonialism brings racism too close for comfort. The fear of disrupting dominant narratives can be paralyzing. Not only national narratives of Canada the good, but dominant narratives that have become personal. The narrative of meritocracy that allows people to believe, me and my family, we're good Canadians. We worked hard, that's why we're successful. The fear of confronting the ways in which the wealth and privilege they enjoy is implicated in the oppression of Indigenous people. Those are difficult lessons that make teachers and teacher educators uncomfortable. Yet, if we really want to accomplish change, we as teachers need to interrogate our discomfort. We need to get up close and personal with it. Rather than allowing discomfort to block and shut down learning, we need to recognize it as a starting place for learning. Teaching the content is emotional work, and we need to be conscious of our emotions. Learn from them, work through our guilt, understand our fear, and interrogate our ignorance. When students ask questions that we don't know the answer to, it's not enough to acknowledge that we don't know that will help them find the answer. We need to talk about the significance of not knowing. What do we know and not know? Why don't we know? And whose interests are served in our not knowing? The organizers of tonight's talk asked me to trouble the 3 R's. And now, at the risk of getting myself into trouble, I want to talk about residential schools and the role of education in accomplishing restitution. Restitution, the act of restoring something to its original state, the act of giving back to a person or people what has been taken away. When a court orders restitution, it orders the defendant to give up his or her gains to the claimant. When a court orders compensation, it orders the defendant to compensate the claimant for his or her loss. I argue that those of us involved in the education system, teachers, teacher educators, policymakers, administrators, we have a profound responsibility to accomplish restitution in education. We were not the teachers in residential schools. We didn't develop or support those policies. But education is our system, and it was used to cause harm, to inflict pain, and to destroy. Although we've made changes, we are not yet giving back what has been taken. We are implicated, and the decolonizing and indigenizing of schools is our responsibility. Decolonizing institutions of formal schooling refers to the project of critiquing Western worldviews and challenging oppressive power structures that they uphold. In schools undertaking decolonization, students would know the name of the nation on whose traditional territory their school is built. And they would know the specific history of how and when that land came to be occupied by settlers. Students would develop an understanding of the relationship, learning that Aboriginal people did not simply or in reality disappear after Canada was explored and occupied by waves of immigrants. The task of decolonizing education and schools as sites of education requires that teachers and students have opportunities to understand Aboriginal people's activism as assertions of human and Indigenous rights, prioritize Aboriginal people's concerns and worldviews, and participate in collective action aimed at transforming the relationship. Indigenizing involves the integration of Indigenous thought and perspectives across the curriculum throughout all grade levels. There is a rich body of literature available for teaching and learning Aboriginal worldviews and perspectives. Indigenizing the curriculum means introducing and providing students with access to creative work by contemporary Aboriginal artists. Indigenizing the school community would see the inclusion of Aboriginal art, poetry, and traditional teachings on the walls of the school and included during announcements and assemblies. Aboriginal community members, including elders and artists, would be invited into the school on a regular basis so that positive and rich relationships could be established. All students would come to recognize the names of Aboriginal authors. They would come to know traditional teachings and develop knowledge and understanding of Aboriginal ways of knowing the self and knowing the self in relationship with the people and the world in which they live. Resurgence, revival, bringing again into activity and prominence. From time immemorial, we, Indigenous people, have been speaking, practicing ceremonies, drawing on our traditional teachings to teach our children and live our lives. And while I have to agree, we are in many ways immersed in a resurgence, I'm troubled by the notion that just because settlers are paying attention to the work, we are said to be enjoying a resurgence. Still, I have to say I'm overwhelmed by the creative work. Drawing on ancestral teachings in these contemporary times, Indigenous visual artists, filmmakers, musicians, writers are telling our stories. Your role in this resurgence, or as Leanne Simpson describes it, a new emergence, is to pay attention. Listen and learn from our experiences and perspectives, and tell your own stories of learning from and learning with Indigenous people. Understand that as Indigenous scholars, educators, artists, and activists, we are here, And we are doing the work of renewing and recuperating our own Indigenous sensibility and way of looking at the world. And while we welcome, even expect you to work with us, I need to be crystal clear. We don't need or want you to help us. We don't want you to pretend to know what it's like for us. You need to be conscious of and work from your own position. Follow our lead to accomplish the decolonizing and indigenizing of education. Think carefully about what it means to pay attention. Understand that it's going to cost you something. It's not going to be easy. The depth of resistance is profound. The desire to maintain the perfect stranger position immense. Position yourself as a settler in solidarity, an Indigenous ally, and tell your story of learning. This, I would argue, might get us to a place where we could begin talking about reconciliation. Because honestly, I don't think that we're there yet. As much as Prime Minister Harper and many Canadians might wish all he had to do was say sorry and that would make everything all better, it's just not that simple. Reconciliation. Restoring mutual respect between individuals from different cultural backgrounds. To resolve, settle, put to rights, bring back together, make peace between. I understand reconciliation to include the settling of differences. In order to do that, we need to know what differences are being settled. It is our responsibility as educators to get Canadians to a place where we might be ready to talk reconciliation. When Canadians recognize the distinct position that Aboriginal people occupy in Canada, when students in Canadian classrooms study the history of the relationship between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, when Canadians respect and support Indigenous rights, then you can talk to me about reconciliation. I teach close to 100 teacher candidates every year. And every year I ask my students to make a list of the books that they were required to read in high school. What the students learn from this question is that they're all reading the same books, and that none of them are required to read a single book written by an Aboriginal author. In recent years, I am encountering students who choose to read an Aboriginal authored book as an independent reading assignment. And this January was the first time a student told me in her high school drama class, Thompson Highway's novel, Kiss of the Fur Queen, was required reading. These are hopeful signs. I'll keep asking the question. When every student in my class raises their hand and tells me, yes, in elementary school and in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, an Aboriginal author text was required reading, then we'll not only be ready to talk about, we'll be well on our way to accomplishing reconciliation. Thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you very much for very provocative conversations. Now we're going to have the opportunity for the keynotes to speak with one another based on any emerging or ideas that they would like to address in their conversation around indigenizing and decolonizing. Also, in considering what has been said tonight and the framework of troubling the 3 Rs, within the context of urban Aboriginal education, what do you see as the opportunities, challenges, and limitations? We're not necessarily exclusive to that question. So please feel free, someone to open the conversation, and we will have that for approximately 15 minutes.
You got the biggest fan club, so you can.
Yeah, I'm local.
the local girls.
Yeah. It's the benefit of being local.
I got something. I got something. It's a positive thing, and it's kind of following what we were all talking. As you were talking, both of you, for some reason, maybe it's because I'm away, I'm missing my kids and stuff, but I kept thinking about my son, the oldest one, Brandon. He's actually, I should not call him Brandon anymore. He wants to be called by his Mohawk name, Scott Nigoraksa, and Scuns is what I call him. So, and so Scuns, this is for you. He was we adopted him, and he was adopted from a family that was raising him in the Fraser Valley, for those of you who know BC, around Chilliwack, Maple Ridge to be precise. And he's a cousin of my wife, so he's blood relation and all that. But, you know, the journey that we've gone on with him as our son, but the journey that I've seen him go on as an Indigenous boy coming into a man kind of reflects everything that we're talking about here. And I kept thinking about checking off, you know, this was good for him, and this worked so well. And, you know, when he came to us, he didn't know who he was. You know, it wasn't residential school, but it was foster care. And it wasn't out of any type of aggressive racism on the part of the people that were raising him. It was, they didn't know. They didn't know what nation he was from. They tried to bring him to powwows, bottom chokers and stuff like that, but it wasn't working, you know. And when he came to us, he honestly didn't know, you know, who he was, and it was reflected in his just way of being. You know, he was confused. He was exhibiting all the things that we know are the result of that. But because of the things that we're talking about here, like, you know, he's been taught his responsibilities. He's in relation to being, well, he's a Mohawk. His mom's Wet'suwet'en, and in relation to his land, trying to fit into his nation's governance system, his responsibilities in his clan, Laksiliu, Little Frog clan in the Wet'suwet'en Nation. Bring him up on the territory, show him it, let him experience, feel, see his relatives. In school, he's been, the education system hasn't served him in that regard, but it's been open to him taking on the initiative of himself. And I guess that's the whole point there, is that I think we've reached a point where if a Native person or a family has the initiative and fights to get their identity back, it's possible in Canada today. But it's not given to us still. It's not. And as you were both saying that, I was thinking, yeah, that's Brandon's Scun's situation, because he was a victim, and we got him back. And that's the way I think about it. It's, you know, like he was taken from that family because of abuse in the generation past, residential school, continuing multi-generational abuse. The family was dispersed, and then we kind of like went and get him, and now we're reintegrating him. But at his high school right now, in relation to what you were saying, it's actually pretty cool, because because of the 7 years of work, he's actually taken on a leadership role in trying to bring like indigeneity into his school. And for those of you that haven't been to Victoria, it's the whitest place on earth. It's the whitest city in Canada, certainly, you know, and I'm there for a reason. Trying to indigenize the whitest city in Canada. And so here's Brandon at the whitest high school in the whitest city. And he's actually, you know, engaged in this kind of struggle in his own life here, and everything that we're talking about. He's got his friends reading books. He's got his own identity. He's working on. He's becoming stronger. He's started a club, you know, where they read and they bring in speakers and all this kind of stuff. And then, you know, it's really transformed him in a lot of different ways. I can talk forever, but I won't on that. And I just think that you're right in the sense that if we're going to really talk about reconciliation, it has to go beyond accepting him and wanting to do that and saying, that's great, Brandon, to actually making it happen for all the other kids that are not like him, who don't have that initiative and that drive to be able to do that on their own. Yeah.
Or who don't have necessarily the parental guidance and support that you and your spouse have been able to provide for Brandon. So I want to acknowledge the TDSB Aboriginal Education Centre, because with a very small staff, they're doing amazing work in the city of Toronto. We saw tonight the performance that is a part of a program that's done in collaboration with the center. And so, through different programs and activities, we are doing that work and that outreach to bring to indigenize and decolonize schools. But it is a lot of work needs to be done, and it's great when parents can support their kids in advocating at the school, but we have to get to a place where it's not up to the Indigenous child to make the to make the outreach. So.
This is odd. So I'm going to put my back to you guys. There's interesting because it seems like you would think that on reserve you have more access to your identity, but it's not the case. I find because urban Indigenous people are seeking that, there's more of an interest in the urban Indigenous population. So say, like in the community of Ganasidaga, where one of the most recent major historical events happened, the Oka crisis is not taught. And in fact, they're not even sure, the kids are not even sure about what happened. And in fact, the community has been attacked from every single level. I worked from 1992 to about 2000 on developing curriculum in our language. From nursery, kindergarten, grades 1 to 6, and we did some for the high school. And then someone decided, well, you've done the curriculum, it's finished, so we're going to apply now to get a fire hall, a fire station, right? Where Oka already has one. So they laid off, of the 13 staff that were there, they laid off 11. So there was one translator left and one director. So what happens is now in reserve schools for language, it's all project oriented. So yeah, it looks wonderful. Oh, $6,000 to do language curriculum. Yeah, but for how long, right? And then you have the people who do not know their language. And so finding a balance between the urban and on reserve, like the former Auditor General said, it's going to take 28 years for on community, on reserve, whatever you want to call it, to catch up with the quality of education that is in the rest of Canada. So that says a lot. And I'm kind of wondering what step do we have to take? Like I like the notion of restitution, regeneration, and all that, but our speakers are dying. And they take with them traditional knowledge. And we all have different dialects of the Mohawk Nation, so we have a dialect that's pretty old. We have 80 speakers left. But one of the positive things we did was through a couple of NGOs, the Canadian Friends Service Committee and Kairos, we translated the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People into Taiaiake. So we're going to develop those concepts of what human rights is in regards to Kayanarakoa, the Great Law, and hopefully this is going to catch. And this summer we're having a human rights class for our youth. Instead of them babysitting the younger ones, they'll have something for the summer. Because I think that's where it has to start is get back what are those obligations? What is it we need to do for the faces not yet born? What is it we need to do? And in our communities, it's like it's on purpose. They deprive us economically, so they've criminalized tobacco, right? They criminalize us. They've cut funding to education. They cut funding to healthcare. So we have this brain drain going to Ottawa or to urban areas. And so this is this whole notion of, yeah, the reserves were good, it was isolationist, right? But it backfired because we still had our languages in there. But now we see that the table's turning, and that's why we need to have something yesterday. And I'm glad your son is learning about himself. But I'm thinking the urgency is now. The urgency was actually many moons ago. And I'm wondering, what does it take? What do we need to do, not as us, as Oklahoma people? Because we're always asked, like, what does that mean to us? Well, we know what it means because the treaties were there. We have the Tura Wampum. But what does it mean to Canadians? What does it mean to educators? What does it mean to politicians? And human rights is also about your obligations to your environment, in our ways, in our customs. So anyways, I'll stop there.
Following that, can I talk about something that I'm really proud of in Akwesasne? It kind of falls with that, and like a practical example of what do we do, like you say, yesterday. So I've been working in Akwesasne for about 7 years on trying to address a study and address the effects of the environmental contamination that was released by General Motors and Reynolds Aluminum and Alcoa in the community there. And it's been a long struggle of people in Akwesasne to address that in a physical way. But then I was brought in about 7 years ago as part of the project to measure and depressing project to measure the cultural impact of not being able to use the river and the land. So we did that, we documented it, and I'm glad to say part of the project was to develop restoration, cultural restoration too. So we've been putting a lot of thought into that. How do you do something yesterday in order to accomplish cultural survival, and just to highlight the one point that you mentioned about the continuing loss and the urgency of it, for those of you that don't appreciate that, when we started this project, the restoration phase in Akwesasne, when we started thinking about it, we identified 30 masters, we called them, because we're developing a mentorship program, master apprentice. 30 masters, somebody who could, kind of like live off the land, who knew about fishing, who knew all the elements of what Mohawk culture, basket making and the medicines and all that. There was about 30 people that they identified in the community. And today, I don't think we have maybe 15. And that's how fast it's happening. And so the urgency is one point, but the way that we decided to approach it, the way Akwesasne Rono decided to approach it with my participation in trying to design it, was let's do it. Let's get those masters and let's pair them up with people who have a commitment to want to learn. And here's where the policy comes in too. Instead of prioritizing fire halls and all that kind of stuff, how about getting some priority from government, in this case the St. Regis Mohawk Council, Mohawk Tribe, to actually have language and cultural restoration as a funding priority, as an institutionally supported project in the community. And so I can't report it being a success because it's just starting, but it's something in Akwesasne that almost all the people there who are involved in language, like Gowanoni, Margaret Peters, and Tom Porter, and all these people who kind of came together and said, yeah, that seems like it might be something that would be one way of addressing it. So it's kind of like a small sliver of the answer, but just to follow up with like a practical example of something that people in that one community are trying to. I so wish that we could do that work in Ganawagi and Ganasatagi, is to let's let our own people understand how they've been impacted by pollution and being separated from the land, and then maybe that'll wake people up to the importance of language and stuff. So this whole mentorship thing has language and cultural practice and ceremony all kind of bundled together into a remaking of the person. We're not going to tell them that that's what they're getting into, that we're remaking them, but that's the objective. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan, Ellen, and Taiaiake. Now we're on to the next part. We're opening it up to a Q&A for approximately 10 minutes. There is a mic over here on the landing, and there's one back there as well. So if you have a question, you can proceed to line up behind the mic.
Thank you very much. This has been so refreshing to have conversations for educators, and I really appreciate all three perspectives here tonight. They're enlightening and they're refreshing and they're encouraging. One of the things that I'd like to address, Susan, you raised, I teach at the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board, and we've really pushed for the indigenization of our education, and we're quite proud of the progress that we've made. In combining all three of what you're saying, and I don't know if you covered it in your speech, but the need for partnerships and community members to come to our classrooms to support us. There are, as you say, there are a lot of teachers who are, for lack of a better word, terrified to enter, start teaching Indigenous education. And so I'm wondering if you could all comment on ways that we can involve community members to come to our classrooms and to support us and to make what we're doing authentic and real and experiential.
Well, my response to that is, first, I do have to say that the elders and teachers in our communities are very busy. As you've heard, we're losing elders, and so we have to be cautious about the demand that's placed on Indigenous people to educate, to do the work of educating. With that being said, I also think that there are a lot of amazing young artists and teachers who've been through an Aboriginal teacher education program, who maybe aren't yet fully employed, who would be interested in opportunities to link with schools. I would have, again, a couple of cautionary notes. Don't expect us to do the work for free. That's seriously.
Well said.
That's serious because we often get asked and expected to do it for free. So that's very important. And what I was saying in my talk was there needs to be ongoing relationship. Don't invite someone in once. Establish a relationship with people. Like I said, artists are amazing teachers, and the wealth of knowledge in the Aboriginal youth community is quite overwhelming. Like, I'm so impressed by it. And so that's a great place to go. Go to the artists and create a relationship with them and cultivate it and invite them in and pay them. And that's a great way to work. And also bring your students and bring your teachers out to community events. I tell students in my classes, Imaginative happens every October, and there's amazing films, and we're all there. So why don't you come and watch some films with us? That's another great way to learn, to engage with the community events. There's an awesome show down at Harbourfront right now called Beat Nation. Go with colleagues and look at the work and talk to the curators. And that's a great way to address that.
I know teachers are underpaid. I've been going to schools for many years, and it helps if your gas is paid this time of year. But I don't know. Sorry, I don't know do you guys have like annual general assemblies where you do resolutions? Or you guys are too poor for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have resolutions because teachers' jobs are. You're underpaid, you're overworked, you have challenges in today's society. So pass a resolution where you have, and this is more political, but it relates to human rights, where you're insisting that at least the curriculum I mean, that could be your part, where the curriculum is changed within the schools and the curriculum is done by Indigenous academics to really reflect the culture and the real colonial history of Canada. So at least that's one part. But, you know, maybe partner with the community to have an Indigenous film festival. You know, there's a lot of wonderful documentaries out there. There's a lot of wonderful documentaries out there by young filmmakers, and internationally too. There's some awesome stuff. So there's different ways you can do it that can make your job easier. But this is one of the ways to do it, because as we know, like we want to keep some of that for ourselves too, because we're just trying to survive. You know, we're always in survival mode, and it would really help us if you at least had that political push to bring the curriculum into all your schools of what the TRC wants to do, but should have happened, you know, when I was in high school, so that I didn't get called a dirty, rotten, bloodthirsty Iroquois person, you know, the most savage-like. And but yeah, that's just a suggestion. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'll just add briefly. I agree with everything they said, and then also I do a lot of it myself. Being in Victoria, get called on a lot, and because of the position I have, I feel like I can. Like, I'm not stressed for cash or anything like that, so I can take time out of my day to go do that. And so that's one, everything they said, but also just ask, you know, and try to get people to come out. And my sense of it is that I always try to leave the kids with something that they didn't know that is crucial to them being good citizens. So like 2 days ago, my kindergartners class came for Aboriginal Awareness Week. They're all very excited. Even, not only my son had a mohawk for the occasion, but some other kids had mohawks. Like, they were so excited to come and do native stuff at the First People's House. And they thought, I guess, we were going to drum and sing, which we did. But I also whipped out the two-row wampum. And I'm like, do you guys know what treaties are? Do you know what promises are? Yes, you know what promises are, yeah. Okay, well, your ancestors made promises to us. That's why you're here. Now, did you know that...
Thank you very much.
Did you know that your grandfather broke his promise? And yeah, grandmother too. And so you can have a little fun with it, but you know, they leave away and saying, that's not fair. You know, that's not fair. And then if they say that's not fair, the history at that age, that's about all they can do. Then, you know, to be serious, I go and do it at the higher level too, at like grade 11, 12, and get a little more academic about it. But yeah, I think, you know, notwithstanding everything that we're saying here, there's ways for you to find a way to inject Indigenous content into what you're doing.
There's the OISE roster. Like, for example, there's a roster of Aboriginal artists that do sustained projects with the Ontario, funded and heavily subsidized by the Ontario Artists Council, so that the artists are paid in full and the school is heavily subsidized. So there's at least 2 dozen.
I think we need more than 10 minutes given this line here.
Yeah. So given the line, I was really going to suggest that maybe everybody doesn't have to answer every question so that we get to hear more questions.
And I think we have one person in the back here now. Are we done with that question? Or will you continuing?
That question's done. Do you have a person in the back?
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Lim. I'm a teacher relatively new with the TDSB, and I teach grade 6, so fortunately this year I could teach about Aboriginal and First Nations. A comment and a quick question. The comment is maybe more words of hope and support for what you're doing, because Susan, what you spoke of, that you hope that teachers do teach, my class was taught that this year. Not just the trivial story, but the injustices of residential school and of the criminalization and the marginalization. Thank you for Jeff and Nicole and Karen, who taught us to have the conviction to speak up to institutionalized wrongs if we believe they're wrong. Thank you to Tanya and Catherine for giving us resources, because you spoke that there aren't there. And to the TCs who are here, they are there. If you go there and ask them, they will help you. And I made my students read multiple books by Aboriginal authors. But a question, my students, they understood, they believed, and they didn't feel guilty, but they felt angry, and they said, what can we do, Mr. Lim? I said, you can talk to your parents. When you grow up, you can vote, because we are the majority, the non-Indigenous, and we have to work together with and fight together, and you can change things. But the question that I have for you, and that came up, was, what do they want when it comes to restitution? And I couldn't answer it honestly or accurately, so I'm asking you. Because, I'm sorry, they said, should we give up all the land and give everything back? And I couldn't answer that. Thank you.
How much time do we have? We have a long list. Basically, what we were talking about, you as educators, I think we've told what you as educators can do, you as voters can do. We want to stop the pipelines. We want to put a moratorium on all development on our lands. We want you to ask your government to repeal the huge omnibus bill that weakens environmental protection. We want investment into Indigenous languages and culture and education. We want the real history of Canada to be taught in your schools. And you know, like I said, there's a long list. I'm sure Susan and Taiaiake also have a list too. But as a person who faced your army 24 years ago, I want my land back. I want the pollution to be stopped. I want pollution to be stopped, and I want our traditional governments to be recognized and to be part of any kind of discussions on land negotiations. Not land claims, because we're not claiming anything that's not ours. I want you to get rid of the doctrine of discovery and papal bulls that your sovereignty is based on. And I want to have an open and loving and compassionate understanding when we have these discussions. Because sometimes we say things that might offend you, but our perspective is coming from one of resistance. And sometimes when you're resisting, you might push too hard. So we ask for your understanding and compassion and patience.
Hi, Chris Charette, Moose Deer Point, Sturgeon Glen, and also a student of Dr. Dion. Fantastic work, and I would like to comment that you've all raised wonderful points, and I look forward to hearing more. One question in regards to education, more specifically bringing traditional teachings to the urban environment. How could we bring language, culture, and even spirituality, and how do we know when it's too much?
That's a tough question. I'll take a shot at that one. But, you know, and the reason I can relate to that is living in another nation's territory, essentially being a visitor as well in Victoria, but yet trying to teach Indigenous people and Indigenous knowledge in that environment. I don't have like a pat answer to your question, but I have a kind of an approach to it that I've used and that has been, I feel, kind of successful in helping me do what I do, which is to show the nation in whose territory you're in the same respect that you're demanding, you know, that Canadian society show you. So this is as Indigenous people come there and relate to them through their governance, through their traditional governments, through their protocols, through their ceremonies, and then take direction in terms of what's appropriate or not. Because I think that's the essence of your question, like what's appropriate to share, how much is too much. But to kind of defer to the people on whose territory you're living on and to develop a relationship there. To develop a relationship with them so that you'll be able to learn from them, they'll be able to learn from you, and then collectively you can offer something to the people who come to the program that you're running. That's my approach. Now, I don't know if that gets exactly at what you were asking, but it's about restoring that kind of pre-colonial way of relating to other Indigenous people, and then taking a direction from what's I guess having an accountability framework that's built out of that, so that people will feel comfortable in telling you when you're going too far, and then after a while you'll know it. You'll know it yourself because you've put the time and the energy, and you understand what the protocols are and what the teachings are from that area of the world.
Miigwech. Ani zozep, sorry. Zozep nadishnakas, makwa dodum, minwa, wikwa makong donjaba. Kinamaga nina nadao. I'm just, my name is Joseph Roy. I'm from Wikwangkong First Nation. I'm a teacher with the Toronto District School Board. I have a question. I think I need to say that I am an Ojibwe teacher right now. I started off as a high school math teacher in the States and moved here to work with my Aboriginal people. And I've faced a lot of resistance, I find, and it's very, I'm the Ojibwe teacher, but I've been known as the Native teacher. And I feel like the token. It's been very hard on me for 5 years. What I need is, sorry, I wear my emotion on my sleeve. But I'm just saying that what I'm asking is that I've been accused sometimes, and I feel lots of resistance when I teach about the history. Residential school. Both my parents are residential school survivors, and it's had a traumatic effect on my life. And I need inspiration sometimes, and I've been accused of teaching hate when I teach the truth. And what I need sometimes is to I feel like sometimes cutting my hair and going back to being a math teacher so I don't have to do this anymore. And I just need inspiration and encouragement from my people, because sometimes I feel alone. And I just need, I'm sorry, this is just, I need to feel like what I'm doing is right.
Well, I really appreciate, and we all appreciate your honesty, brother, and being able to be so honest about the way you're feeling, and to share your struggle with us. It's a struggle that we all face, actually. You know, we may seem like strong and accomplished people who don't feel that way sometimes, but it happens every day. And I think you mentioned it in your presentation. It's an ongoing thing. It's a constant battle to survive. And I don't have any hair to cut off, so please don't cut off your hair. It's nice. But when it comes down to it, the thing that motivates me all the time, when I feel that way, and it's often, is to think back about the struggle of our ancestors. What did they fight for? What did they die for? They fought and died for us to survive and to continue on as people, as a nation of people. And they did whatever they had to in order to do that. You're doing what you have to do here. It's what you're born into. You're born into that struggle. This is your place. This is your time. The names have come down multi-generationally. Someone has lived your name before. You're living that name now. And there's a reason that you're here. And you're a warrior. You're a warrior for the people. That's the way you got to think about it. So carry on that struggle, brother. Stay on the warpath.
Miigwech. Miigwech.
I'm Chris Patchy with the Métis Nation of Ontario, and it's been wonderful hearing all three speakers. Susan talked about the study she did for us. I brought a few copies. I'll bring you those down to you. I didn't bring enough for everybody, so I apologize. But you can get it on, Susan, you've got it on the website?
Yes,
at
it's
York?
on the York University Center for Community and Education website. The York University.
I sense a little bit of a competitive tone to that. I thought OISE was a preeminent Indigenous education center.
We've also got it on the MNO's website, so you can download it there as well. Part of the reason why we did the study in the first place, we had talked to the ADM of the Ministry of Education, Raymond Thiberge at the time. He was the ADM. He's moved over to one of the universities. He's a president now, I think in New Brunswick. Raymond said, "Don't do the research. You don't need to do it. Nothing's being taught." And that's exactly why we had the research done, because there's nothing being taught. And we have no animosity to OISE or any of the faculties of education in Ontario. In fact, we want to make sure that teachers are capable of teaching about Métis in Ontario, about Métis across Canada, about Métis as part of the Aboriginal communities in Canada. And we know that we, as a community, have to do a much better job helping you get resources as well as learn and be able to teach about this material. You're not alone, and you're not being thrown into the classroom alone. So I really appreciate tonight and OISE doing what they're doing in this conference tonight and in the symposium tomorrow. I'm only upset that I can only go to 2 sessions tomorrow, though. I want to go to all 3, so I apologize for not being at all 3 of the sessions. So thank you.
Bonjour, Sarah Evis Nadishnikov. I am a Saguenay-Chikwe. I'm nervous to say this because I know it's not the right thing to draw attention to yourself, but I'm responding to the despair, Ellen, you in particular have articulated, and the gentleman who came before. And so I just wanted to say that some of us are starting to do the work, and our students are going out there and they're educating their high school teachers, and they're reading the books, and they're talking to people at shopping malls. And it's a small start, but I wanted to say to all of the people here, the teachers who have not started on this path, that it is doable. There are abundant resources. YouTube has a video of residential school survivors. It has videos of everything. It brings these people right into your classes if you can't and don't want to tax people who are already doing way too much. Get your students to become Facebook friends with any of the people organizing I'll No More Toronto or Canada. That's a great resource. Council Fire has a teach-in every single Tuesday night from 6 o'clock until 8 or 9, where they are going through every aspect of everything that you've talked about this evening. They're welcoming, they have beverages and stuff to eat. I'm around if anybody wants to ask me anything about what we're doing in our small alternative school, Delta Senior Alternative School. I'd be more than happy to help you. And I will share with the gentleman who was so sad that parents of my students have complained all the way up to the trustee that I am propagating hate because I teach them that Stephen Harper is doing the wrong thing. But you know, we have a responsibility to teach this stuff. And I think when it all boils down to us, there's no one on the school board that can stop us from teaching what is the right thing to do. So people feel empowered. That's it.
My name is Shanice, and I'm a student of Mrs. Dion. And I just wanted to say thank you to both Susan and Ellen for just being an inspiration for Aboriginal women. I just feel like in the media, most of the images are of like this sexy Pocahontas girl, and I just feel like, thank you for being an inspiration. Like, you guys are strong Aboriginal women, and I just feel like people just try to portray Aboriginal women as these weak things, and you guys are just strong Aboriginal women fighting for our people, and just the women at the Aboriginal Education Center. They're all women, and they're all out there educating us. Kathy and Christine and Bonnie and all the other women, Tanya, like, you guys are just such an inspiration for us as Aboriginal women to get out there and to fight for our people and our education. So, miigwech.
My mic is not. Hello? I just want to say that, yes, of course, I know that a lot of good work is being done in the schools. I know that there are a lot of teachers who have started the journey. And I don't ever want to dismiss the good work that's being accomplished. It's incredibly important. And I just also want to second the idea that when we teach the youth become the best advocates for us. We have found that in the research that we've done about the work happening at the Aboriginal Education Center, is that the youth, when we reach the youth, they go back to their schools and work with their teachers and work with their classmates, and they're just the best advocates for us. So I really want to emphasize that I am conscious that we are doing good work. There's just lots more to do. Miigwech.
I just want to say thank you to the young lady. As you get older, you tend to forget things. I forgot your name, but it's not out of disrespect. Shanice, thank you very much. I think, as I said, I think it's time that all women, not just Indigenous women, took their rightful place in society, and that I'm glad to be the opposite of Pocahontas. But I think, when we talk about the issue of violence against Indigenous women, it's also reflective of what's happening to women of other races and colors and this whole notion of equality starts with us in the beginning. And as educators, you are the ones who mold the minds of the young people, and we need to be really wary of this entertainment industry that numbs our minds and tells us still, when I was your age, or much younger actually, when I was in my teens, there was this image of what a woman should look like. And in 2013, that image has not changed. So I'm glad that young women are taking their rightful place. And I hope that young men also, as Taiaike's son is taking his rightful place, that we grow together on this road. So I'm very honored by your words. Inyoko.
The work that I do in the university at the UVic involves about 80 to 90% women in terms of our students and the people in my faculty, and I'm very proud to say that. As an Iroquois expatriate, not expatriate, expatriate, think about it. To be able to be part of the restoration of the true role of Indigenous women in our nations and in this land, I'm very proud of having contributed to that. So that's my own little below my horn thing in terms of the work that we do. But I think we're done, and I am going to, I've been given permission. Jeff Burnham, I don't know if he's here, but he's outside selling books. He's a great guy right there. He has a company called goodminds.com. And he's been at it. He's been at it for many years, and like I said, great guy, great company, so go on goodminds.com. He's given me 2 copies of a book to give away. And as a way of finishing it off before we formally finish, we're going to test how decolonized you are. So I got a question for you. Whoever answers the question right gets a book, a free book, and I'll write whatever you want in it. So what does Canada mean, and where does the word come from? Which language? Put your hand up. Oh, who said the village? you get a copy of this book. What's another question I could ask them? Okay. What nation does the word come from? What language? It comes from Mohawk, right? Who said Mohawk? 50 people did, but he put his hand up first, the guy in the back over there. There you go. All right. Come get your books. Got another one?
Can I just say that the book that comes from my community is out there. It's not evident. It's called At the Wood's Edge. And it's a big yellow book. And it's work that I did the illustrations, and there was a gazillion people that worked on the research for it, of the history of my community. And 2 of my cousins wrote the book. So I'm hoping Jeff will also want to give that book away, and I can ask a question too, so I can be included in this. But I also wanted to acknowledge my friend Jennifer Preston, who works for the Canadian Friends Service Committee, who has really supported a lot the promotion of our languages and the promotion of human rights. And it's people like her that inspire me to continue this work. Because otherwise I could just stay at home on the res and just say, all white people are racist, and I don't want anything to do with them. But she's an inspiration to me, so I just want to acknowledge her. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I need a question. Oh, there's your... We use the word Aboriginal to include 3 distinct groups of Indigenous people. Who can tell me? Oh, I think Shanice gets that. Shanice, can you tell us? Woohoo!
Okay. What section within the Canadian Constitution recognizes the inherent rights of Aboriginal peoples? Who said 35? Bingo! We can't have an Indigenous event.
Oh, showdown. I actually think it was the one in the back. I think it was the one in the back.
Tiebreaker.
Yeah, she called the lady in the back, actually. So. No. Yeah. And we were just laughing because you noticed the word bingo was spoken. You cannot have an Indigenous event without saying the word bingo at least.
Okay, so I'd like to say at this point, thank you very much, Chimigwich, to everybody who's made this possible. Thank you for everybody for coming out tonight. And to the students and the wonderful artwork that they did, to the keynote speakers, Susan, Dion, Ellen, Gabriel, and Taiaiake Alfred. Thank you very much also to the Center for Urban Schooling, the Indigenous Education Network, the Arts Department, and the TDSB Aboriginal Education Center, and all you fabulous folks here. So big chimigwich, and before we end, I just want to remind everybody too that Good Minds is out in the hall, and Jeff Burnham will be there with the books that have also been given away. There's a wide wealth of books on infusing Aboriginal perspectives throughout the curriculum, and other books that are very much worthwhile reading. And also, I'd like to close at this point by reminding people who are registered in the seminars tomorrow that they're at the Native Canadian Centre on Spadina. And I'd like to invite Kat Krieger to do closing.
Bonjour, Sego, Ani. You can stand or sit, but there's a few words I'd like to say, but it's been a long night already. I'll bring you a few words from my little boy, because I love doing that, because he's the one that teaches me a lot, along with my original teacher, whose name was Wewe Gabo, my adopted father, and from Shawniga First Nations, actually, from a number of years back. I was telling my little boy a while ago I was going to a gathering of political people, and he wanted to know what that was. I thought, that's a really hard question. I said, we're going to talk about different things. He goes, oh, well, who's going to be talking? Who's going to be doing what? And what's it about? And I said, well, we're going to talk about Stephen Harper. He apologized a while ago. So my little boy, he has his own ideas about apologizing. So I told him that Stephen Harper had apologized to all the Native people. He goes, oh, that's good. Does he keep his promises? And I had to be honest, because we're having a little traditional discussion. I said, not always. He goes, well, does he do what when he says he's going to do something, does he always do it? No. No, he doesn't always do it. Sometimes he does, but he doesn't always do it. My little boy goes, well, does he always tell the truth? I thought, well, I'm under pressure here. But I got to respond honestly. I said, no, he doesn't always tell the truth. And he goes, well, then, he was 3.5, 4 when we were talking about this. He goes, then he deserves a timeout. He has to sit in the chair. A long one, yeah. More than 5 minutes. His views on saying you're sorry, he's very, very distinct about this, and he came up with it himself. I asked him one day, do you know what sorry means? You know when little kids say they're sorry and you're a parent? How many people are parents? Lots of us. So I asked him, do you know what sorry means? He goes, yeah. It means I'll never do it again. And that there might be consequences. That's from a little kid. He's just, a little boy. I think all our little people are like that. We have that. When we're born, we get a little bit older, we have those thoughts that we carry. So there's a lot of things we need to think about when it comes to saying we're sorry. And there's a lot of things that can come from that. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the people that brought their hearts here. I want to thank the people that put it together. I want to thank my friends here, because we all know each other. Even if we don't know each other by name, we see each other on the path because we're all walking the same path. It's really easy to teach who we are. And it should be part of what's happening here. It should be part of all the schools. One of my international students came to me and said, well, quite a while back, if you go to China, you see Chinese, you hear Chinese, you eat Chinese, the architecture is Chinese, the people are Chinese, you see it everywhere. You come to Canada, where's all the Indians? I got asked that, where are all the Indians? Of course, he meant us. We're up here. But I want to say we're really willing to talk. We're really willing to teach. We like talking about who we are as a people. We like talking about our culture. We like looking at the path. We like making things better. It's a passion that we have. It's a foundational philosophy that the way we walk is to respect one another. That's why we can all come together. We're a bunch of different nations here. I've traveled different parts of the world. I like meeting new people. I like sharing culture. I'm happy at any point in time to come and talk to any of your schools. And most of the school boards in Southern Ontario I've talked to, or I've went to, I've been part of, including this university here. And I'd be happy to work at the other university. There's another university that isn't here at Ryerson. Well, maybe, anybody for... See, I knew that would happen. I'm actually a student at Ryerson. In my other world, I'm a fashion photographer, so it's weird to step out of this role. I really am, honest. If you check my bio, I have a background in rocket science, aerospace navigation and communication, so I'm an educated Iroquois, Cayugan person. But I stopped doing all that to start doing this, to start teaching about who we are. And it was a long road. I spent 15 years with my elder until he passed away. And I kept doing that afterwards. So I have a passion to do this. Most of our people have a passion to do this. And you're right when you say that 70%, 80%, when I do circles, it's mostly women. It's not just because I'm good looking. It's because our women lead the way. They always have. Our mothers are our first teachers. So I want to say thank you to all the women that are here. When I look out in the audience, what do we see? Mostly women. So thank you all for being here. There's a time when I like to get the men, because the original gift, this body that I'm walking around, the only reason I can stand here and talk is because a woman carried me and I was born. So there's a time when I like to get all the men here to turn around, look at all the women, and say, thank you. I won't hear nothing. I want to hear it. I want to hear every man here say thank you to all the women. That's because that's where we come from. That's where we learn from. That original teaching that we get, those original lessons that we get, come from the heart. So I want to hear everybody speak from the heart. I want to see everybody walk from the heart. And I'm kind of getting emotional too, because I'm missing my little guy. He's at home wondering, he's waiting. I don't want to come through the door to be late, but he'll come bombing down the hallway. Him and the two cats. Bang, hi, Daddy. And it's nice to hear those words. And he's always anxious to learn. A while ago at the Native Center, he was taking the smudge bowl around by himself. He's 5 years old. He's carrying it by himself. This is really hot, Daddy. But he did it. He went to all the people, and he's shy. You know what little kids are like? But he went all to the people in the circle and made sure they were smudged. And I was really proud to see that. He's part Scottish, part German, part Irish, part Cayugan. So he's carrying a whole bunch of cultures when he's walking around with that shell. So I just wanted to leave those few little thoughts. There's a lot more I could come up with, but most of it's miigwech. Most of it's miigwech. Thank you. Because you're all going to make a huge difference. So I just want to leave you with those thoughts. For those of you traveling, a safe journey. And our prayers are with you. You have loved ones at home, greet them. Give them a hug. Say thank you. Because I say thank you to everybody here. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to stop.